welcome to 216, a Link to the Past Randomizer podcast. I am your host, Dear Agent, and we're back for episode number 2. Dropping a little early. The response to episode 1 was greater than I could have ever imagined. You know, I recorded a bunch of these episodes with my buds and my pals, and I had a blast doing it. But you never know what the response is going to be when you put it out into the world. The worst response being no response at all. You just kind of put it out there and hear nothing. But that couldn't be further from the truth with what happened with episode 1 in the show. The subscriber count is growing. The people joining the Discord is growing. The downloads are better than I imagined. And I'm just really excited about the response to the show. I've had such a blast making it. And so I thought, you know what? This is my show. I can do what I want. Let's drop an episode a little early. So through season 1, every episode will still come out on time on Mondays, but you might get a little bonus on Thursdays here and there. I have a lot of conversations already recorded, and I'm excited to share them with you. And we're already booked through August of this year, so the summer's pretty much done. And there are so many people in this community that I want to talk to. So I want to get through season 1. I just want to share it. I want to put it out in the world. I want people to hear it because I'm having a blast making them. The conversations have been great. And like I said, the response has been overwhelming. And I can't thank everyone enough. Best way to help out, of course, is just listening to the show, talking about it, spreading the word, sharing it with your friends, getting people to listen. That's the goal right now. And that's the best way to support the podcast, which you all have done immensely. So I can't thank you enough. So today's guest, we've got Mooglecharm on the show, a good buddy of mine, someone I love to play the game with, someone I like to create MSU packs with. And we're going to talk a lot about MSUs with Moogle because he is an MSU master. And if you're not familiar with MSUs, the conversation might be a little confusing. So I'm going to explain what MSUs are real quick, and that will cover that for a majority of our conversation, because we do spend quite a bit of time talking about MSUs. Simply put, MSUs replace the music in the game with a pack that someone else has made. So we love playing Link to the Past Randomizer. A Link to the Past vanilla music is one of the greatest soundtracks of all time for video game music. So why would you ever want to replace it? Well, you play Link to the Past Randomizer, you play 10 seeds, you play 20 seeds, you play 50 seeds, you play 100 seeds. The music, as great as it is, can get a bit repetitive. I think there's over 400 packs now of different subsets of music. So you could have different video game music. You have different music from movies. I know someone just made a classical music pack, which was pretty cool. I made a pack using WWE entrance themes. There's so many different packs. And it's just a fun way to spice up the game. And so we're going to talk a lot about MSU packs with Moogle, because he makes a ton of them and they're all excellent. And he's got his own website, msu.studio, where you can download them all. So make sure you check that out. Main tournaments going on right now. My money's on Zelga Dasan. At least that's who I put in my predictions. I don't understand how that guy hasn't won a tournament. Dude's so good. Having said that, he barely made it out of round 1 against MM2 Nest cartridge. Check out those matches. They're a lot of fun. Zelga's so good. Another couple people to keep an eye on during this tournament, and I'm kind of rooting for this matchup, is Scottish Brave and Zen Arcane. Now, they're not playing each other right now, but they've both advanced to round 2. And if everything goes well for them, they could end up meeting in round 4, which would be top 8. Both have just been tearing up this tournament, and they're both really fun to watch and are engaged. So that would be something to see them have to play each other in this tournament. Scottish Brave versus Zen Arcane, still alive. And really hoping to get to that matchup. Mooglecharm is in the top 32, playing against Yagamoth right now. If you get a chance to watch game 1, I would really recommend checking it out. It is on one of the speed gaming channels, and it was quite the show. Lots of really cool main tournament races going on as we wind down to crown a champion. I've been on a little bit of a rando break. Took some time off after qualifiers. I jumped back in at the PogChamp tournament that's going on right now, season 7 or 8, something like that. That was a big mistake. the PogChamp settings for this season are a throwback to season 2 settings that Kyong created, but they have pseudo boots and all the seeds. And the first seed that I played was against Zelga Desan, and he destroyed me because I ended up giving up. I mean, he's going to win anyways. There's no doubt about that. But it was this weird Enemizer, brick wall health, expert item functionality seed that I just did not enjoy playing. And it was not the best way to come back to the game after an extended time off. So there's that. We'll see how much I want to continue playing. The game is fun, but right now the tilt is real. Even though I've been away, I knew what I was getting into joining the PogChamp this season, but it just did not work out the way I was kind of hoping. I was hoping for something a little bit more fun, and that seed was not fun. So yeah, let's get to our guest today, Mooglecharm. Currently top 32 in the main tournament. Excellent MSU pack maker, good friend, and just a cool guy. And I'm excited about our conversation. So here we go. When I think of Mooglecharm, I think MSU. That's like the first thing that I go to, just because, well, one, you have your own website now, but you've created so many MSUs. What MSUs that you haven't created that are your favorite?
That I haven't created.
Right.
That's a good question.
You created a ton of MSUs, especially some really unique ones like Super Guitar Bros, both volume 1 and 2, but specifically volume 1 is top 2, top 3 for me for MSUs. It's so good. I mean, the music's great, but what you did with it, and I think that's what makes you a good MSU creator, is you know how to take a pack and really put the songs where they really need to be or where they shine. So what packs do you use that are some of your favorites?
It's funny because I would say, because I've created so many, they're like my children in a way. Mm-hmm. I don't really use any other MSU packs, but when I first started out, I really liked using the DKC pack. That's one that I hear a lot throughout the community, the DKC 1 through 3 pack. Mm-hmm. The music from that game is those 3 games are amazing.
Yeah.
I also really like the packs that Shady has created, Shady Force. So he's done the Super Mario Galaxy packs, which I find to be really, really good. Not just because of the song choices and stuff, but just the music itself is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think one of the big things with MSUs is anybody can make an MSU, but making an MSU, and I think this is the art form of it, is finding the right songs for the right places, especially with now that it's extended, is a real art. And I think that it's something that you've mastered. So you used Shady's, keep going. Was there any other ones that you used before you started using your own?
Before I started using my own? No, those were the first couple. It was funny because, well, actually, no, I used your, you had the Breath of the Wild one. That I used a little bit. It was really following you and Shady where I was like, what are these things? Like, why is there different music?
Oh, right.
It was just, early on, I didn't really follow too many people other than like Speed Gaming or Andy. And, when I started to kind of see other people in the community using different music packs all the time, it was just kind of eye-opening for me. Mm-hmm. So I would say I didn't use like a ton, but it was just like, how do I even get this up and running and getting a couple that I liked?
When you started, were there a lot of packs? Because now there's like over 400 packs or something like that. Do you remember how many there were approximately when you started?
I would say it was probably like several dozen.
Yeah,
maybe in the 100 range. I don't know exactly. Like I've actually pulled up the packs sheet right now. There's several in here from like 2019 or early 20.
I want to say when I started first making packs and starting using packs, there wasn't a lot. I feel like Cadence of Hyrule was a big one where people started to really discover like, hey, this is a thing. And I think there's a couple different Cadence packs that were made. But before extended MSU as well, there was like the Donkey Kong. I think there might have been like a Sonic one or something like that.
Yeah, like I've got the sheet open, and through the middle of 2020, there's a little over 100 packs.
Mm-hmm.
And I had done my Super Mario World pack in September of 20. So yeah, somewhere in that 100 to 120 range, they were probably out there. But yeah, in the last couple of years, it's just blown up.
Yeah, it's totally exploded. Was Super Mario World your first pack?
Yes.
So what made you want to make the packs, and how did that determine what packs you were going to make?
Well, so the Super Mario World came about. We were talking about Shady Force, so I was scheduled to do commentary with him. And you know how like when you're going to do commentary, you meet up a little bit beforehand, you chat with your co-com, you kind of get ready for the race and whatnot. So it was really my first time chatting with him a little bit, and I found out that he was a Super Mario World speedrunner as well. And somehow we got on the subject of MSUs, and it was like, there's no Super Mario World pack out there. And I was like flabbergasted. Like, what do you mean? How does that not exist? You know, like there's so many good games and good music out there. And for whatever reason, there was no Super Mario World pack. So I was like, well, I'm going to try and learn how to do this. And yeah, ended up just putting it together. And I think it turned out really well. And I had always had this idea of kind of creating these mixes, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But, you know, the Mario games just historically have had such great music. And I'm an older guy. I just turned 40. So my heart is kind of with all of the really old games, you know, NES, Super Nintendo and stuff. And it was like, maybe I could blow out the Super Mario World pack to include some other Mario games and stuff. And that's where the next pack that I created came from. It was
Mario
like
Mix.
The Mario Mix. And that was just like, it was so much fun to put together and discover some of my old favorite songs. And that's where kind of that idea of really trying to create the puzzle of MSUs started to come about. Where it's like, okay, I've got like 5 games worth of music now. Every dungeon has its own look and feel. How do I start to piece some of this stuff together?
Yeah, which I think was a problem, because I think I tried to put together a Super Mario World pack, but there's not a ton of tracks. And, you know, at the time I was trying to do extended only packs, like trying to get dungeon music and stuff in there. Not necessarily boss music, but the dungeon music in there. And so I kind of threw my hat in the ring a little bit, but I just couldn't really put the pieces together. So I was glad that you put it together. It's a pack I use often. It's a really good one. I remember my big contribution to that pack. Do you remember what that was?
To that pack? No, yeah. I remember your big contribution to my NES pack, but not that one. What was
that one was the goal music.
Oh, yes.
I had to have that.
Yes.
I had to have that. I remember.
I remember now. Yeah. Because I had just pulled the track, and then you were like, "Man, it would be awesome to have that last piece." So I actually had to record it. So I played a level while I was recording it in Audacity, so that I could add that in. Yeah, because it was to get the timing right, and you have the little drum roll with the score, and there's just like. Yeah, I had to record it to get it right, but when I ended up giving it to you, I was so happy with it, and then just to hear like your joy from that track was awesome.
Yeah, that's like classic. You got to have the ending part to the tape. That's like one of the best parts. So you go from Super Mario World to the Super Mario Mix, and then moved on from where did you go from there?
So that's where the NES Mix was shortly thereafter.
I don't remember my contribution to the NES Mix.
So the NES mix was like, I don't know if this is true, but I'm guessing that it was one of the very first packs that just pulled stuff from a bunch of different games to try to pull it together in one cohesive thing. And like I said, my heart is kind of with the old school games, and I had this idea of trying to pull all these 8-bit songs together that I loved, and ended up grabbing a ton of music from like Mega Man and Ninja Turtles and Contra and Mario and Zelda and all these places, and tried to just say, all right, so what does this dungeon feel like, and finding, like, if you think about Mega Man 2, for instance, there's like, the whole soundtrack is amazing, but there's probably like 2 or 3 songs that, like, when you hear it, you know exactly what level it was. The kind of takes you back to when you were a kid, and like I did that with all these different games. So I had like a top 2 or 3 from each game, and just started to throw them in with how I thought things felt. And I remember having you run it for the first time and watching it, and it was like things didn't kind of feel exactly right, but I felt like I was on a good path, to creating something really good. And in Swamp Palace, I had the Ninja Turtles track, and then on the boss, I had a Ninja Turtles boss music. And you had asked me afterwards, you're like, hey, like, was it intentional that you put the Ninja Turtle stuff for both the boss and the dungeon together? And I was like, no, it wasn't, just kind of felt right. He's like, and you were like, yeah, like that sounded like really cool. And I remember when I was watching you, like some of the other levels, they didn't feel right. And I think it was because the boss music didn't match the dungeon.
Yeah.
So my second go around was, all right, so I'm going to take, like, there's 13 dungeons or whatever. I'm going to take the 13 best songs and throw them in the dungeon. And then I'm going to just grab like the boss or mini boss music or whatever from those games and make that the boss music. And it was like so much better than the original version, and everything felt like it worked properly. Yeah. So from then on, it was just kind of tweaking and making sure that the tracks that I wanted to get in would get in. But you were the one who would, like, kind of started to point me in that direction of like, well, what if you tried to put the dungeon and bosses together? How would that feel? And since then, like, that's the kind of formula that I use with all of these different mixes. Wherever possible, I'm trying to get the boss music and the dungeon music from the same game or the same series or
align
something.
them a bit. Yeah. That NES pack is also one of my faves. I use that one quite a bit. I use the Castlevania NES mix quite a bit because that's got some really good music in it as well. But you were able to sneak some Castlevania into your NES mix. So you branched out from just doing regular video game music. Obviously, when you did the Super Guitar Bros, was there anything in between that? Because you've put out so many packs. Honestly, it's hard to keep track of which ones are yours.
Yeah, I have a bunch that are unreleased. That, like, there were some that I put together. There's a company out there called Brave Wave that they put out some music. Like, what they had ended up doing was hiring a bunch of the composers from like the old NES and Super Nintendo games and Genesis and stuff, and they had them create like just their own music. And that was an album that I really liked. It was called World 1-2. And I was like, can I turn this into an MSU just for fun? Like, I was just going to try and play around with it. And I was able to do it. So I started actually downloading a bunch of different soundtracks. There's a game called Bastion out there that I've never played, but the music was really good. And I created an MSU out of that. And, just never release them. I think because I don't want people to have to pay for stuff if they don't have to. But then B, like, I don't release anything unless I feel like it's kind of my best work, and those things, like, I've just played around with a bit. And and it was more like, I play them from time to time, but it wasn't like anything that that I was like super close to, and that, I felt like was worth releasing to the world. But separate from that, like the Grand Pool World 2 pack, that's a hack. The game is a hack. The music from the hack is created by random people like you and me, who are just super talented at creating music. And I think that was probably my first foray into like just completely unrelated, or like games that I've never played that just had really good music that I just wanted to see if I could create good packs from. And I would say that Grand Poo World and then the Invictus pack are two of my more successful packs.
The Grand Poo World and Invictus, do they have original music, or do they take music from other games and then use them in those ROM hacks?
A little bit of both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So if you go to find those ROM hacks, there's a website called SMW Hacks, I believe, that hosts all the music and all of the ROM hacks and everything there. And a lot of the music that's there is like, let's say, resamples of like tracks that you would know today, but just done in like a 16-bit format.
Oh, okay.
And then others are just completely brand new packs or brand new tracks. So I did actually create a pack that I intend to release to everybody, where I just went on that website, filtered on originals. So, music that's not from any old game, somebody created it from scratch.
Yeah.
And I created a pack out of music from that. And it's really, really good stuff.
Mm. Was it going to be titled like Super Mario Hacks?
Probably
hacks
something like that. Yeah. I think you've heard it before on my stream. It's like, I like to play it a lot. So at night I play Super Guitar Bros, right? Because it's so chill. Yeah. Like I don't want anything that's going to wake me up. And then a lot of times I play the Super Mario Hacks one because it's like super groovy kind of tunes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny that you use all your own packs. I don't use any of my packs, really. Like, I create my packs. I think I get burnt out on the packs when I create them because, all the testing and playing through of them, where I'm like, I just don't, like, I love the music. I'm really proud of the Breath of the Wild version 2 that I did just recently, where I kind of went back to the Breath of the Wild and I felt like I improved the pack a bit and made it feel a little bit more like the actual Breath of the Wild. Where it's a little bit more ambient, and I use it a ton when I was, creating the pack. But I don't really want to use it that often. I think the pack that I do use the most, I guess, of my own would be the McKellen Chill packs.
Yeah.
But everything else, I feel like the 8-bit rock one, the 8-bit universe rock one, I never used. I see a lot of people use that one. I don't know why that is, but
yeah, I think. I've created so many that I do get to keep it fresh. Now, I do have a couple that I play all the time, like the NES Mix one, and then my Mega Man Mix one. I play probably more than most. Oh, and then Super Guitar Bros. But yeah, like I totally hear you. There's packs that I don't play a ton just because of that burnout factor, like you said. But like one of my favorites is my cartoon pack, but I don't play it very often.
Sure. Yeah, that was a unique pack. So where does the idea of using non-video game music come from? And what kind of compelled you to go in that direction? And what inspired you to create packs like Super Guitar Bros or stuff, or the cartoon pack, or things that were outside of the realm of just, hey, here's some video game music. Let's put the video game music on top of Link to the Past.
That's a really good question. You always have, I think, as a human, like I'm always trying to outdo kind of the things that I've done. I always want to do things that are better, bigger and better than I were before. And I think I'm always looking for something that can stand up to my NES pack. When I put it out, it was like this idea that I had, and it turned out so well. Like like nothing will touch it, but I'm always trying to achieve that goal. And, unfortunately there's no other game systems out there that can bring me back to that kind of 8-bit childhood, and has the music that will stand up to it. So I feel like I've had to try to think outside the box to create things that other people could look at and say, man, that's a really, really good pack. And I don't know, like sometimes I just have these random ideas, and I think it's helped that, I look at some of the stuff that you've put out where, I think the cartoon thing actually came like subconsciously, it came from the NFL stuff that we did. Where you had this idea for such a random idea, right? Putting NFL music in a video game. And I fell in love with it instantly. The trying to find the right tracks for the right places and the right look and feel for everything. And I've got 2 young kids, and a lot of the time that I spend with them when they're not putzing around on Netflix, when we're looking for something to watch on TV, is to go back to my childhood and say, here's the stuff that I used to watch, which is way better than what you're watching today. Right.
Right. Totally.
And yeah. And, when I grew up, Thundercats was a thing, and I could still play the entire Thundercats song in my head from 35 years ago. And it was just like, man, I wonder if is there a pack here that I could do that, that would have all this like random cartoon music in it? And like, I just started going on YouTube and recording the tracks and trying to see what I could find. And it eventually just got to a point where it was like, man, there's like so much here, can I actually create something that A, people will enjoy, B, sounds like a cohesive pack, and see what I can do. And I had Gamma test quite a few different iterations. I think the biggest difficulty with that pack was the fact that a lot of those old tracks, they have lyrics. So it's like, when do lyrics work and when do they not work? How do I find the stuff without the lyrics if possible? Because I mean, these cartoons were 30 plus years ago. So it was certainly a challenge, but it's really cool when I'll hop into someone's stream and they're playing it, and it's like, oh man, this actually was a really good pack.
Let's talk a little bit about the NFL pack. So because that's a collab between you and I. Like we've talked about contributions to each other's packs, but this was like an actual true collaboration where I had this idea for the NFL pack because there's so many good NFL tracks between the different stations and then all the different shows on like in ESPN and NFL Network. I thought, man, I think this could work. And I remember putting it together, and I put it together pretty quickly. And I showed you, and you're like, I think I can do better. And I did. I think it's in a roundabout way. You didn't only use those words.
I didn't
exactly,
say those words.
But I think it was like, you had a lot of critiques for the pack. And I remember being like, it kind of like the creative side of me kind of like tensed up a little bit, like, and then you kind of took your stab and really reworked that pack and made it great. And I remember after we changed it and you made those fixes, using it and going like, he was so right. like, oh man, it works so much better the way you reworked it. I thought that was one of the most fun packs that I've created, because it was a collaboration, which I don't think any of the other packs that I've done have been like that.
Yeah, the same here. I don't think I have. I'm going through kind of my list here, and there's nothing here where I've worked with somebody on it. I would say the closest I came was, so I helped Dante create his Doom MSU, but that was more where he was like, I have this MSU idea, I want to put it together, but I don't know how. So I kind of helped him through that process and like showed him how to create some of the loops and, actually like took a look at some tracks and said, here's how I would loop it. But in terms of like actually talking about tracks and placements and that sort of thing, like, the yours and mine was a true collaboration. And that one was so much fun to put together.
It
I
was.
mean,
It's a fun one to use, especially during the NFL season as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. The music is fantastic. I played football my entire childhood through high school. Football's it's a very close sport for me. I love watching it. I love watching the analysis. I love having it on in the background. And then, to hear so many of those tracks. And again, this is like, I think part of why I love making MSU so much is because it takes me back to my childhood and those like fond memories, right? And there are so many football tracks from 20, 30 years ago on ESPN or like those NFL films tracks where you're just like, oh my God, like you can visualize somebody hitting somebody or throwing a touchdown or whatever, right?
Or you hear Chris Berman, commentating over the NFL live music or the NFL primetime. And that was like the height of our, young adulthood. As football fans, primetime was everything pre-internet. And Chris Berman and Tom Jackson, you just hear those voices ingrained in that music, even if you don't actually have them on the track. It just totally works. So I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a really fun kind of puzzle to put together. And then I think part of what was missing from the initial thing that you put together was it felt like it was missing just 2 or 3 tracks. It's like if we can find a little bit more, I think it could make the pack so much better. So like that was a fun little YouTube run there where I'm looking for stuff and it's like, oh man, this track and this track. And I think the Campbell's Soup, like that original NFL films, like they would play it during those Campbell's Soup commercials with like Donovan McNabb or whatever and his mom. And like those were really fun to find.
Yeah, that was really good. So you have more packs in the cooker?
I'm always like creating stuff. Yeah. So I want to release that Super Mario Hacks one at some point. I've got like Super Guitar Bros. They release music every month, like a track or 2 every month. And I'm waiting for a little bit more to potentially create another one of those. Shireen actually opened me up to the Super Smash Brothers kind of stuff because so he created that Smash Brawl MSU, which is great. And my son plays Smash Brothers like ad nauseum. So I get to hear a lot of the levels and stuff. And there's like, I don't know how many characters, 80 characters in it. And every character has their own like volume of music. And it's set up it could create like a Moogle pack from it. It's like these mixes that I could create from these different characters, but the music is familiar, but just like 21st century kind of stuff.
Right.
So I was actually creating a Mega Man mix from Super Smash Brothers, and it's like rock music, Mega Man rock music, basically. But yeah, I've got like ideas all the time. I'll probably release some of those unreleased ones that I've got.
Yeah.
I think part of having the website was to be a little bit more in control of getting my stuff out there and being able to tell the story with it, where it came from. And I'm hoping to be able to continue to create MSUs for a while.
And the website is msu.studio. Is that what it is?
Yep.
Where you can actually download all your packs and then actually join your Discord as well, which has all these packs and a couple other people's packs like mine are curated a little bit more than just being on a spreadsheet, which is really nice.
It was more, I wanted to make sure that, if you get your pack out there on the website, like I want to be able to highlight who you are and what you've done and link people to your website or your Twitch and that sort of thing.
I feel like I could talk MSUs all day with you because, again, when I think of MSUs, I just think of how many you've created and how many, not just created, but that are like top-notch, top-tier MSUs. But you're also like an accomplished runner. We're just about to start the bracket round of the 2022 main tournament, which you will be a part of. So top 64. Where did you find Rando? Like what was your introduction to Rando?
I think it was YouTube. Like I was just putzing around on YouTube, and yeah, I played a ton of video games when I was younger, up through about college, and then after college, like I just stopped. I think, starting a career and living in the city and going out every night type of thing. Like I just never played video games. And when I had my son is 9. I ended up buying a Switch a few years ago and just kind of started to slowly get back into gaming. And, the YouTube algorithm works in magical ways sometimes. And eventually, you stumble upon something that you didn't know existed. And I remember seeing a match. I don't remember what it was, but it was Andy versus somebody, and it was a speed gaming restream. And it was like, what the hell is this? Like someone took this old game and made it fresh. Like I didn't understand it. Like, the fact that somebody could even do something like that. And eventually figured out how to get it up and running on my own, and just started doing it on my own, not even like racing, just because, we're talking about MSUs and the puzzle aspect. Like I love doing puzzles. I'm a finance guy by trade, but my education is in engineering and math. Like that's just how my brain tends to work.
Sure.
And being able to play this old game, but have it be different every single time, where you're solving a new puzzle every time, was really, really intriguing to me. And yeah, I ended up just watching more on YouTube eventually, like figuring out what the heck Twitch was and getting a Twitch account. And, I was like, let's try racing and see how good we can actually be at this game. And eventually getting to where I'm at today.
So you weren't even familiar with Twitch at this point when you found Randomizer? You weren't watching other Twitch streams? Were you? Nope. What about with Zelda? What was your history with Link to the Past or other Zelda games?
I mean, I grew up playing Legend of Zelda. Mostly 1, 2 was really, really tough. Sure. And then, when I got my Super Nintendo, getting Link to the Past was a thing. And I'm a Nintendo guy, so like every Nintendo system that would come out, I would get it. And Nintendo's really good at knowing which characters are their best and creating great games out of those characters, right? So like you get the system and you get the Mario game that comes with it, and you're looking forward to the Zelda game that's coming out at some point. So, every Zelda game that came out, I would buy. I never had Game Boys, so I never would play like those Game Boy games, but those franchise games on the consoles, I played and beat like most of them. I think the only game that I didn't really play was Majora's Mask. But every like flagship Zelda game that came out for a console, I played ad nauseum. And I remember when emulators became a thing, like it's like when I was in college, early 2000s. Trying to find some of those old games that I loved growing up, and Zelda 3 was one of the games that I would revisit the most. That and then Final Fantasy 6. Like those are my 2 favorite games growing up. So I would play a ton of Final Fantasy and then a ton of Link to the Past.
Yeah, I think I've purchased a Link to the Past like 100 times because I'd buy it on I'd buy it, when it was on the Super Nintendo, and then I'd buy it when it came out on like the Game Boy Advance, and then I buy it when it was like on the Wii U, and it would just, I would buy it what every version,
the online services.
Whatever was out. I was like, oh, I need to go back and get it. So were you like watching any other gaming before Link to the Past? Is that kind of because you talked about the YouTube algorithm got you to that, but were you like into watching speed running or games done quick or any of that stuff?
It was actually Games Done Quick where I think that's how I ended up getting fed into the algorithm.
I see.
Where I don't even remember how it got into Games Done Quick, but like seeing people beat games super fast was like, oh, I remember trying to do that a little bit when I was a kid, but not, not actually making it a thing where I had a timer and was keeping track. I remember that there was a Nintendo Power where they were trying to get people to submit times for this one Mario Kart track. It was like, if you can get under, a minute, whatever, like you can get put into this magazine. And that was like, when I was a kid, like one of the first times where I was like trying really hard to do it. But yeah, when I ended up seeing Games Done Quick, that was like, oh wow, there's like a whole world of people out there that are just doing this, for fun or even for their jobs. And and ultimately getting fed into the Link to the Past stuff. But
Sure.
I think some of the first stuff that I really was enjoying on Games Done Quick was like the Kaizo Mario stuff.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I get that. Watching those are like amazing.
Completely. So you pick up the game, you get familiar with it. You're kind of playing it offline, trying to refamiliarize yourself with just playing the game. And then obviously the randomizer aspect of it. Which version is this? Do you remember? What year?
I'm trying to think. It wasn't that. I feel like the versions over the last like 3 years have been like very scattered. Yeah. We haven't gotten new versions very often. I would say probably 29 or 30.
Okay.
I don't think it's been that. Like I haven't gone through that many iterations.
Sure. Well, what year did you start playing? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was late 19.
Okay, so it was probably
mid to late 19, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so it was probably 29 then.
Yeah.
So what made you say let's start racing? Like, that was SRL days still, right?
It was. Yeah. That was a pain in the ass to set up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a super competitive guy. Like I said, I played a lot of sports growing up, played football through high school, fairly athletic. So like I just have always had this competitive kind of sports nature to my makeup. And as an older guy now, it's really hard to have that outlet to compete with people. And as I was getting better offline, it was like, I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there that are just as new at this game as I am or whatever. And, just tried it out. And I wasn't very good. I was obviously towards the bottom of the pack, but
yeah.
Even today, you mentioned the main tournament now, like I don't really have any visions of winning. It's more of trying to see how I benchmark against other people and to just improve, let's say every day or whatever. So getting into the racing aspect was more of just trying to tap into that competitive outlet that I could have now as someone who can't go and play basketball for a couple hours anymore.
So in late 2019, it's mostly pickup races on SRL using the main Discord as a way to like find races. What do you remember? Which tournaments you started? Was your first tournament, or which thing kind of got you into like the?
Well, the first thing that I was really doing was the dailies. So now the dailies are like kind of back, but that before they had died, they were actually still around. Like if you go to the LTTPR website, they still have the daily challenges out there. And back then the daily challenges were much more of a thing where people would talk about them in the Discord, and you'd have several people who were running it. I think
those are basically asyncs.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So, like I had kind of started by doing those daily challenges, and then there was much more of a community of daily runners back then. So I would hop into the dailies every once in a while, and that was really my first like set of racing. I think the first tournament I played in was it the spoiler tournament? There was a spoiler tournament that was run a couple summers ago. Yeah, that might have been the very first one that I played, like official tournament. I don't think I played in the main tournament. Maybe I had done qualifiers, but I certainly didn't qualify. Trying to think now.
Yeah, I've been a part of the committee for a while, and I didn't realize that there was dailies. Because when you say daily, I think of the speed gaming daily, which I was a big part of in the late 2018, early 2019.
Maybe it was a daily challenge then. I could be getting some of my stuff mixed up, but like I would be racing every day and talking to people about it.
Mm-hmm.
And SRL, like I had done bigger races in SRL as well.
Yeah.
And maybe those were the SG then weeklies or something, but there was like SG dailies were a thing back then from what I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they still happen, but with the latter, there's a lot less participation in the speed gaming dailies.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. So you joined the spoiler tournament. Did you join any of the main tournaments? I'm trying to think because
I think I did do the Challenge Cup in 2020. So I must have like tried to qualify and didn't, and then did the Challenge Cup and then just got roasted in that. But that may have been the first one, and then spoiler tournament was second. I could be getting some of my timeline mixed up, but
was there a main tournament in 2020?
There were two tournaments for a while. There was like a fall tournament and a spring tournament.
Spring and fall. And then the league happened and it sort of switched. And I want to say, because we ended up running the league twice one year. And I think that was the year that there wasn't a main tournament. So 2021, 2022, I think we've had main tournaments. 2020, I don't think there was. And then 2019, there was a main tournament. I could be wrong. I could be getting all these dates wrong. But you ended up joining the league in season 2 or season 3?
Season 2.
Okay. And that was, what was your team?
The Double Dippers.
Double Dippers, that's right. Who was your teammates?
We had Edop and who was
T-Stu?
the third one? No, T-Stu we got in the third season. Man, why does their name escape me?
When you joined the
website,
league,
I'm gonna find it.
When you joined the league,
Swagalicious.
Swagalicious. All right. So how did you join up with these two guys?
It was totally random. Well, I knew Adamp a little bit only because he was doing the dailies as well. So like we would be doing the dailies around the same time, and I find actually that's kind of how you create your networks a little bit in this community. You know, when you look at the dailies today, there's a lot of the same types of runners who are joining those dailies, or whoever's sending out pings tend to get the same people who join those races, and you kind of create a network from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Edump was one of those guys for me where we were always in the same types of races together, getting around the same times. And I remember when you guys were saying, hey, league is expanding. So, we're going to have signups on this day. I remember getting Ed, and it was like, let's try and get a team. And if I remember correctly, we were able to recruit a third person later or something. Like you didn't need to have the team at the time of sign up or whatever.
Oh, wow.
So, and that was the sign up where you guys filled it in like a minute, and we were lucky enough to get through. But yeah, me and Ed would be in the same races, but we didn't really know each other outside of that. And then we just randomly recruited the third.
And how did you guys end up performing that season?
We made the playoffs somehow. Ended up matching up with Did You Check Your Boot in the round one of the playoffs? I've got the website up, and beating them. So, it's we were a pretty good team. I did pretty well that year. Looks like I was 8-3 and 1. Beating Tam and Tam's team in the playoffs is a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, I remember I think season 2 and 3, your two teams kind of
Yeah.
had a little rivalry going, not like anything personal, but just felt like you guys ended up matching up a lot.
Yeah,
Because
we
I
were in
think
the
you were in the
same.
same division and then ended up
Yep.
meeting in the playoffs as well.
Yeah, the meeting in the playoffs, having a really close playoffs, and we even tied, I think, in game 5, so I had to play game 6, and yeah, and every league season after that was the same deal where somehow, you guys put me and Tam in the same division, and we're having very close matches.
Yeah. What did it? When you guys made the playoffs, was there a sense of like, oh, I made it? Or did you ever get that sense of that sense or feeling of like, oh, I'm here, I'm competitive, or are you still even searching for that feeling, even though you're in the top 64 of the current tournament?
I am, to a degree. Like, I think because of when you start to get better at this game, you play with you like play with people who are like as good or better than you, right? Typically. And I think, we play a lot with guys like Gamma and Shireen and Megawatt and P Train and Julie, and Wall Kicks, like all these guys who are the who's who of the rando community, right? And I know like there's others who are really good out there. But like these guys all belong in the top, whatever, 20, 30. So, because I play a lot with guys like that, I don't feel like I've made it, right? Because I'm always losing to them and they're really good. And, it's not until I kind of venture out into the world and I play other people where it's like, oh yeah, I'm actually pretty good at this game. I didn't feel like I had quote unquote made it until it was the SGL from a couple years ago. I had Banta in my group and I ended up beating Banta, and it wasn't like I didn't get lucky or anything. I played a really good race. I think Banta ended up like not doing ice tea room or something stupid like that. But like when I go back and watch the video, I was, in the same rooms as him throughout the entire race. And it was like, it's Banta, Banta's really good at this game. And I am, making it very close.
Yeah.
And when I won, yeah, exactly. Like that's when I felt like, oh, maybe I'm actually like pretty good at the game, and I can, make noise in whatever tournament that I play in.
That 20, SG Live 20, I believe, right? That was all online. Yeah.
Not this last one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this question, because I feel like kind of what I want this podcast to be about is trying to understand the competitiveness of a randomizer. Like anyone that plays this game competitively, that's not playing it just casually for fun, has a sense or an urgency to win. And I think you see this in any sort of video game or any sort of environment where it feels really bad when you lose, or you feel like you might be better than someone and you lose to them, in that sort of like frustration, or like, you're supposed to go left and you end up going right in this game and it ends up costing you the race or whatever. So I'm trying to understand, or what are your thoughts on competitiveness and randomizer together, right? Like, if we were just to compete in A Link to the Past, we have that. We have speed running and we know who's the best and who can perform and do the same actions over and over again and do them in a very skilled way, which doesn't fully translate. There's translation to it in the randomizer, but it's not fully equal. And so it's, I don't know. What are your thoughts on some of that stuff?
Yeah. So I've always kind of equated the randomizer to poker. Like the best person who's at a poker table doesn't always win. I remember being in Vegas one time and I ended up getting pocket jacks. The flop came. It was a rainbow. Jack was the highest card. It was like Jack 9-4 rainbow, like the best possible flop outside of 2 other jacks, right? That could have happened. And, I slow played it perfectly. And you're in Vegas. People are there and they don't really care. They're there to spend money. And this dude ended up sucking out a straight on me, despite me trying to get him out of the hand. It was like one of these awful feelings that I had, right?
Yeah.
But, I had the best hand, and then I ended up losing a few $100 and it sucked. But, I tell that story because like randomizer is a lot of the same things. Like anyone can come in and quote unquote compete. You're not always going to win against other people who are better than you, but you have that opportunity to. A lot of times when you're playing the game, what you're going through in your head are like the odds, right? You don't just like go to places. I mean, maybe some people do. They see the green squares on their tracker, so they go to those places. But like a lot of times when I'm playing, I'm trying to think of like what is the seed trying to tell me? Where do I need to go next based on some of the stuff that I've gotten? What are the odds telling me in terms of places that I should think about going to? One time I remember beating Gamma because I was like, my only opportunity at winning, like I know that I'm losing, but my only opportunity at winning right now is going straight to Tile Room and GT because that's my only way of cutting like 4 minutes out of my time. And I got the key and I ended up beating him. Like the randomizer is competitive in the way where like we're all trying to solve the puzzle as fast as possible. When you get to a certain level, like you and me, our execution is not going to hinder us to the point like where we're going to lose to someone like Gamma or Airy every single time, right? Like we have the opportunity to win if we could solve the puzzle faster than they can. And, it's a lot of like odds and playing the odds and thinking about the math and what the seed is trying to tell you. And I talked about poker. Like to me, it's a lot of the same types of feeling. And to win a poker tournament with several thousand people, you have to get very lucky. You have to also be on your game, and you have to be able to put up with the long nights and long days, and day after day after day, and the main tournament has a lot of that same feeling to it, right? Where you're like last year, you were playing the same mode every day for weeks on end. Now this year it's different in terms of the format, but the feeling is the same. Like we've been in the main tournament now for almost 4 months, I think. It's a grind, and everyone's good. And I've gotten lucky along the way, and I still have an opportunity to keep going.
Yeah. So how are you feeling about this year's tournament?
I feel pretty good. The modes I have a little bit of a question with, but in terms of the kind of the structure, I think it's actually played out pretty well. I think they're on to something if they make some tweaks with how they go about it. But I think having these different modes actually plays to my strengths a little bit, because I'm not like the best at any particular mode. Like when there's certain names that come up, like you equate them with a mode, like wall kicks or Zelga or Lin, like they are cross keys. Like they're great at the game, but like they're amazing at cross keys, right? When you think of like a GFE or Julo, like they're clown modes, right? Like they're just really good at clown modes, and they're probably going to win most of the time. I find that with myself, like I'm pretty good at everything, not the best, but pretty good at everything. And, having the opportunity to play in this tournament with modes that you don't know until you're 5 minutes from the start. But, and I'm a pretty good runner. Like I find that gives me either a little bit of an advantage or not a disadvantage against most runners.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are the modes have you enjoyed the most that are in this tournament, and which ones? Let's get into it. What didn't you like about the main tournament specifically?
I don't like the tournament hard mode. we'll joke around about how it's just heart piece mode. Like,
sure.
It's really weird when you go into Blind's Hut and then the Kakariko well and you get 10 heart pieces out of it. Like, it just doesn't feel right. And you're trying to create a hard mode, but a lot of times you walk out of Kakariko and you've got 8 hearts already and you're like, what, how did this happen? It's like 5 minutes in. So, I think there's some tweaks that need to be made in terms of like, if they're going to have a quote unquote flagship mode. I think the modes that were chosen aren't like everyday modes that people play. When people are pinging in the main Discord or whatever, like you never see people pinging for MC boss shuffle.
Sure.
So it's like these modes were curated to fit what it seemed like speed gaming wanted. Because I had actually voiced some of my opinion in the they had like a channel where they were looking for feedback, and I was like, how do you have a tournament like this where you have all these random modes and you don't have cross keys, right? And people would say, well, there's a cross keys tournament. And it's like, okay, but if you're trying to find the best rando player who can play a bunch of different modes, cross keys needs to be in there. Like,
right.
That is my opinion, and I think of the opinion of many other people. And you can't disqualify cross keys because it tends to go over the 2-hour mark. Like, that's not a criteria. You're trying to create a tournament for the people, not a tournament for speed gaming. If you're creating a tournament for speed gaming, you should be very upfront about that, right? That's what Speed Gaming Live is about, I think, right? So, I think creating or putting modes in there that the general public plays all the time and are familiar with, I think would have made more sense. But, in terms of modes that are there now, I think the inverted mode is the most fun, only because you have so much that you can do right off the bat. It challenges you from a low percent perspective. It gets you to think about the game in a different way. I would say that's my favorite. And then probably the MC boss is my second favorite.
Inverted was probably the most controversial of the modes included. And you're saying that one is your favorite of the modes.
Well, I don't like Ambrosia and I don't like the hard. So like, I've out of 5 modes, I really dislike 2 of them. And you're basically asking me to pick my favorite out of like the bad children, right? Like I have to pick a favorite, but I don't necessarily need to like all of them.
Sure.
I'm not really an inverted player. I had to practice it a bit and try to figure out routing wise what tends to work. But I think, again, going back to my comment around me being good at most things, like I think if I can get decent at inverted, it gives me a good chance of beating my opponent because nobody plays inverted. It's not a mode that's very prevalent. It confuses a lot of really good runners. I did a practice run with Zero, Rush, and a couple others a few weeks ago, and Zero like completely forgot about things. It's like that's the kind of stuff where it's like if I just play a good game, like, and I don't forget about something, I may have a chance to win just based on that alone. Yeah. Much less, anything else that could happen. So I think like the modes could use some tweaking. I think the way that you guys did it with League was pretty good. Now I know that there's a co-op aspect to that, and maybe there's a way to, if you remove co-op, how do you tweak the mode that people want to play? But I think in terms of the card system and when you're going from one race to the next and not having it the same mode, like those are the types of things that the main tourney can build on to make next year's even better. Yeah.
What did you think of finding out what you're racing 5 minutes before you're racing it? Because that was another aspect that I know was a little bit more controversial is the word, not the right word, but the one that I will choose to use right now.
Sure. And I mean, that was another reason why they said no to cross keys, because it's like, well, people need to be able to plan for a 3-hour race then. It's like, oh, okay, then tell me my mode, earlier. Don't give it to me 5 minutes beforehand.
Yeah.
I it's very nerve-wracking in a way. And I kind of wish that it wasn't like this mystery race. you know, the way it feels right now, it's like a mystery race where you're telling me what it is right beforehand. And I don't know, that anxiety of not knowing what I'm going to be running beforehand it doesn't sit well with me. Mm-hmm. Now I think it would be really cool that if I knew I was facing off against Fear Agent in the next round, that you know, Synack runs some algorithm and it says, all right, like Fear and Moogle, in game 1, you guys are going to play this. Game 2, you're going to play this. Game 3, if it gets there, you're going to play this. Like that, I think would, you know, you'd get to utilize the same system in terms of the mode creations and that sort of thing, but you remove that kind of surprise aspect to it, right? Especially when like there were so many instances this year of, you know, you have a 3% chance of getting this mode, and then somebody gets it and they're like, well, what the hell? Like, I didn't practice that. I practiced inverted keys because, you know, like when you look at our group, we went the entire group session without having MC boss.
Wow.
So 12 races. And I mean, I don't know kind of sample size wise how like what were the odds of something like that happening? But like, you know, when we did the tiebreaker, we had a 50% chance of MC boss. And I'm like, do I even practice it? Because 50-50 has meant nothing so far throughout this entire group session, because there have been times where we had 1 out of 20 cards in there of a mode, and then we ended up picking it.
Yeah.
So like at my first 4 races, I had only 2 modes. And Shady's first 4, I think he had Key Sanity 3 times. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's certainly things that they can work on, but they're certainly onto something as well.
Yeah. I think it's a big improvement over one mode the entire tournament, because that just wears you down for sure. Yeah. Well, cool. Yep. I think we got it all. Are you good?
I'm good, man. I really appreciate you reaching out and wanting to interview me and kind of showcase some of the stuff that I've done a little bit, and really looking forward to continuing to race in the community and putting out more MSU packs and getting to engage with some of the runners out there, and hopefully hear some of my packs on more streams and stuff.
Yeah, it always feels good when you hear a runner using your pack.
Yeah.
You feel that little sense of pride and joy for sure.
Definitely. Yep.
Well, good luck in the main tournament here, as in the bracket stage. Take it down, man. Win the whole thing.
I'll try. If I do, I'll dedicate it to Fear Agent for sure.
All right. Sounds good, man. Thanks.
All right.
That's our conversation with Mooglecharm. Such a good dude, man. I love playing the game with Moogle. And just hanging out with him. He's just such a good dude, and I can't get enough of his packs. His packs are so good. So make sure you check out Moogle on Twitch. twitch.tv/Mooglecharm. Download his MSUs over at msu.studio. Join our Discord. You can get the link by going to 216pod.com. Join in on the conversation of these episodes. Let me know what you think. Are you enjoying these episodes? Do you have questions for guests? And who would you like to see on the show for the upcoming seasons? There's so many people that I want to talk to. Again, I can't thank everyone enough for the response to episode 1 and the response to the show in general. I'm really having a blast making these, and I hope that comes through in the recordings. Thank you all so much. That's going to do it for this episode. See you next week.